FBI's cybercrime division had the exact opposite problem to the DEA. They were fine with the technology side of things, but they didn't have experience in drug investigations. However, the New York DEA agent had mentioned something that got their attention. The leader of Silk Road, the Dread Pirate Roberts, was becoming more brazen in what was for sale. Before, it was mainly drugs, but after that came firearms, explosives, and now, hacking tools. The FBI cybercrime team immediately checked what hacking tools were for sale. They found listings for keyloggers, banking trojans, malware applications, spyware applications, and much more. They knew that's how they would get inside the case. Tarbell called the higher-ups at the agency, presented his idea, and weeks later, he was given approval to open a case on Silk Road. The cybercrime team started analysing Silk Road in detail, and they came to a conclusion. Their chances of catching the Dread Pirate Roberts and shutting down the site depended entirely on human error. The technology Silk Road used was strong. Both Tor and Bitcoin were built to help keep anonymity, and that was what made the case such a painstaking ordeal to anyone who crossed paths with it. But they also knew that Tor, Bitcoin, and Silk Road were built and used by humans, and humans made mistakes. So that's what the FBI cybercrime division waited for. A mistake. And it came. Ross had been dealing with security problems on Silk Road ever since it started, and in May 2013, he had a major one. There was a coding error that made the IP address of the server go public. Ross immediately fixed the mistake, and soon enough everything went back to normal. The IP address of the server was no longer showing. But Ross was worried that if anyone was watching at that precise moment, they might have noticed it. And he was right to be worried. The FBI cybercrime that if anyone was watching at that precise moment, even though Silk Road was in the deep web, it was still housed by a server, and the code of that server had just been revealed to be worried. The FBI started to work that if anyone was watching, and he found it a few hours later, even though Silk Road was in the deep web, it was still housed by a server. If this server was the real Silk Road server, and it hadn't just been erased, they could have all the information they needed on Silk Road. Found it a few hours later, even though Silk Road was in the deep web, it was still housed by if this server was the real Silk Road server, and it hadn't just been erased, it was agreed that they would send a Tarbell a thumb drive containing all the information they needed on Silk Road. Found it a few hours. Tarbell received this in June 2013. He immediately showed the thumb drive to his computer scientist, Thomas Kiernan. Kiernan entered the thumb drive into his computer, and after a few seconds, they were looking at all of the folders that housed Silk Road. But they were all encrypted. Tarbell couldn't believe it. If the folders were encrypted, they would never be able to access them. Like Variety Jones had said when he first told Ross to encrypt everything, if you have good encryption and a strong password, the FBI could never find you. Kiernan tried every trick he knew to beat the encryption, but nothing worked. It looked like that was going to be the end of the server lead. Until a few days later. Tarbell was talking on the phone with Assistant US Attorney Seren Turner from New York. Turner was aware of the server lead and Tarbell's trip to Iceland, and he asked him if there had been any advances in the investigation. Tarbell said there hadn't been because they couldn't get past the encryption, and Turner was confused. He asked why the passcode hadn't worked.